my name is Brianna Hellier. This is for Micro 206, and this is my fermented food that I made. So I decided to make kombucha, which is pretty much a fermented tea. I love drinking kombucha. I buy it at the grocery store all the time, but I really wanted to make it for myself. I've heard it's relatively cheap and easy, and that way you can control kind of what goes in your kombucha. And so I started out by buying this starter culture from my local health food store, and I found it in the refrigerated section, which is key because it is a dehydrated SCOBY, which SCOBY stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And so the importance of it being dehydrated and refrigerated is because that keeps it in kind of an inactive state, all of the bacteria and yeast that are in there. That way they can kind of be latent, and then once you're ready to actually start making kombucha, then of course you have to reactivate them. So that's what I did. I am in the activation process of activating my SCOBY, and pretty much it's relatively simple. I was kind of surprised, but the instructions were pretty clear. The first step is to make a sweet tea. And so the instructions were to grab a quart-sized jar, mason jar, and add 2 to 3 cups of hot water. And the hot is the key word, not boiling, not room temp, not cool. It needs to be hot so that first of all you can dissolve all of your table sugar that you put in. And then secondly, it needs to be hot so that you can actually steep your tea leaves in there and that you get a nice tea made. So I used 2 black tea bags. Nothing really fancy about the tea I used, just kind of plain. They said try to use unflavored. And then with the water too, I forgot to mention, they said that it needs to be chlorine and fluoride free. And that's important because those 2 chemicals can affect the bacteria and yeast in your SCOBY. So once you make your sweet tea, you pull out the tea bags, and you have to let the tea that you just made, cool to room temperature. So, which is important because once you put in your SCOBY, if it's too hot, it'll kill your bacteria. If it's too cool, if you refrigerate it, which is a no-no, again, it'll kind of make the bacteria and the yeast kind of lag, and they'll still ferment, but it'll be at a slower rate, which means it'll take more time to make your kombucha. So once you let it cool to room temperature, you want to add a half a cup of vinegar, which is important because the vinegar makes it acidic. And the bacteria in the SCOBY are actually acidophiles, which means, of course, that they love acidic environments and they thrive in them. So you add the vinegar, and then, of course, you add your SCOBY. And once it kind of is in there, they say to cover it with a tight woven cloth or with a coffee filter, like a paper coffee filter, and secure it with a rubber band or the ring from your mason jar. The reason that it has to be tightly woven is you don't want to let bugs, especially fruit flies or house flies or ants, get into your kombucha, contaminating it. But they do need air. The bacteria in the SCOBY do need air because they are obligate aerobes, and so that's why you have that. And you also want to soak the cloth or the paper towel or whatever you use with white distilled vinegar again. That's to prevent mold and bacterial growth from either your environment or whether in your house if you have a moldy house or something like that. So that's to keep your kombucha free of contaminants. I did a little research on what kind of bacteria were found in my brand of SCOBY. They say that it varies from kombucha to kombucha, so really you never know for certain what ones are inside of your tea because they change. But for a fact, I know that Acetobacter is found in just about all kombucha. So Acetobacter is an obligate aerobe bacteria. Its main purpose is fermenting the alcohols that are produced by the yeast and it turns it into acetic and other acids. And of course, acetic acid is pretty much vinegar. A couple other yeasts that are found in there are going to be Saccharomyces, Brettanomyces, species of yeasts, and then Lactobacillus is another bacteria that's found in this brand of kombucha. So pretty much during the fermentation process, while this is sitting on your counter at room temperature for 30 days to activate that SCOBY, fermentation is occurring, and that is producing, or it's taking the sugar from the sweet tea, and it's converting it into acids, into carbon dioxide, into alcohols, and so this is actually could become an alcoholic beverage if you let it sit on the counter for, longer than a couple of weeks. Not a ton of alcohol in there, but there is a little bit present. And of course, the sugar is necessary for the bacteria and the yeast to carry out fermentation. The reason that we add, the website that I found this from also says that you can add flavoring to your kombucha. So some people don't like the straight up bitter taste, the kind of vinegary taste that comes from just making plain kombucha. So they say you can actually add fruit juice or even just plain cut up fruits to your brewed kombucha. And what that does is it actually introduces a second fermentation process. And so they recommend once you make your kombucha, you remove the SCOBY that is floating in there. You remove that. You have your kombucha tea. You place it in an airtight container. So like a bottle with a cork, a screw top, whatever airtight container bottle you have. And you add pieces of fruit in there. Juice is a little easier, but I want to try adding fruit. And what that does is once you seal it with the fruit in there, it allows the bacteria that are free floating in the tea to begin fermentation again. And so they're eating the sugars found in the fruits, and they're producing more acetic acid, more alcohols, more carbon dioxide. And so this actually is how kombucha that you find in the supermarket that is flavored with cranberries, various fruits, it's why it's carbonated. And so it just kind of introduces a natural carbonation process to the drink, making it fizzy and kind of tastes almost like pop. And so I'm excited to try that once my kombucha is brewed and ready. If I were to do this again, I'm definitely planning on doing this again. I am excited to make bigger batches of tea, and hopefully they also said that a baby SCOBY could form, which I can actually see one starting to form at the bottom. It just looks like a cloudy kind of mess right now, but they say if you let it sit, it'll become a SCOBY, like that leathery kind of mushroom looking thing. So I'm excited to hopefully pass that on to a friend or family so that they can make their own kombucha. But overall, I learned a lot. I'm excited to actually taste my kombucha once it's all ready. And I think that's it.